Hello everyone, my name is Vernisa.
Hey y'all, this is Jen.
And this is our podcast, Speak Up. What's up, Jen?
Hey girl.
How are you?
I'm good. Glad that we got to relax. How are you?
I'm good. Glad we made it to episode 58.
Yo, we're almost at 60.
60's coming around the corner. For those of you that don't know, me and Jen are best friends, and we create this podcast to use our voices to motivate people to overcome life's challenges through self-love and respect.
Yes, self-love and respect are two core values that we're always going to talk about in each and every single episode.
Yes, I completely agree. So today our episode is called Think Like an Aquarius.
And before y'all start saying anything, we are two Aquariuses, okay? So we are allowed to make this title. But also, before we get into anything, we just wanted to remind y'all that we are live every Thursday on the Good News Radio at 7 p.m. Make sure you go to download the app. You can find it on the link on the Instagram page at the Good News Radio and catch SpeakUpJV live and unfiltered Thursdays at 7 p.m.
Yes, please tap in. It's a great, and you're also able just to interact with us. So that's even more dope. Ask us questions, like just take advantage of it.
That's right.
Yeah. So think like an Aquarius. Yeah, basically today we are talking about learning to be okay with removing our energy from certain people / situations. So we named it Think Like an Aquarius to be funny because, you know, Aquariuses are often laid as the most cold, detached zodiac sign. So, you know, we had to throw a little humor in there and name it that. But really it's about protecting your energy, your space, and knowing just when to pull away and turn that on.
Yeah, definitely. I think with us, we're so used to giving our time to other people that we just wanted to emphasize that it's okay to take that time away from those people and just do things for yourself, right? As aloof or quote unquote detached Aquariuses can be. It's also because we're very about self-reflection, that we very much so like to spend time with ourselves and kind of figure out what's going on in our head. And whether you resonate with this or not, you know, that's what we wanted to talk about today because that's what, you know, resonates with us.
Yeah, I agree with that. And like, I feel like we don't realize how much of our time is being wasted from staying around certain energy because it's like normalized to hang with certain people or be around just because of the title or because of how long we know the person. But it's nothing wrong with taking that break or completely removing yourself if needed.
Oh yeah, definitely. I mean, if you've ever been a people pleaser, you know the guilt that comes from, you know, having to separate from this person or just taking a break from the relationship or whatever. And that's the thing. We're not saying like if you take time away from other people that it's a done deal. It's never bound to be ever again. It depends obviously on the situation. We're never going to tell you who to stay around and who not to stay around. But at the end of the day too, like we need to release that guilt that comes from whatever decision we do make, whether we decide to never mess with this person ever again, or we decide that maybe later on down the road, things will work out. But it's all about letting go of that need for us, because at the end of the day, like we always mention every episode, right, that we still have our own identity outside of any type of relationship that you have.
Yes, and I feel like people pleasing, that's what allows you to stick around even when you're being drained, even when you have nothing left to pour from. And that's where the guilt gets the power, because when you're a people pleaser, guess what? Like you're always thinking of the others before yourself. So someone could wear you to the ground, but if you're in that people pleasing mentality, you're gonna let them even make you feel guilty for like, you know, setting certain boundaries or just like choosing to stay away or just completely detach yourself. So that's exactly the nail that we want to hit today on this episode.
Absolutely. And we want to talk about too, like the importance of saying no to these people also, because sometimes we don't realize how much someone is really taking up of our space or our energy until we finally have to say no to them, right? It's like that Beyonce song, Yes.
Yes. Oh, tell it.
Yeah. Where it's like, you know, we always say yes, and then the one time I say no, it's like all of a sudden I never said yes, right? Like everything I have ever done for you just disappears and all that stuff. But also like realizing if somebody doesn't take no in a healthy manner from you, that is a red flag also, because that means this person expects you to always be there for them, you know, 100,000% of the time, and just always like you worry about them, you know, versus like, what about me? You know, I want to take time for myself and everything. And I think no is one of the hardest words to actually tell somebody. We think we always owe somebody an explanation after we say no. We always think that no is too like hurtful, so we use other words like, oh, I'm okay, or no thank you, you know, or sometimes which is fine in certain situations, but sometimes no is just a complete sentence on its own, and we need to be okay with that, because no holds a lot of power, and that's when we're actually starting to fight for ourselves.
Yeah, there's that saying that says you see someone's true colors when you finally tell them no. And it's so true, because I think of like people in like certain relationships with different people in general, like where, yeah, they always got their way with me, everything was cool and dandy, but as soon as, yeah, a no was dropped in, all of a sudden where these words come out, or you're this person, you're that, da 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 da, and then that's where you can really see who's ungrateful, who's unappreciative, because like Jen said, you don't owe nobody explanation for why you're saying no. Like, they don't give you one when they say no, and a lot of people will take as long as you're allowing them to take, and it is something powerful about that word no, because after a while, all those yeses, it becomes like a stomping ground for people.
Right.
And, you know, I feel like we've all done, we've all said yes to something we really wanted to say no. And now that I've learned the power of no, and the liberating feeling of it, I'm happy that I say no a lot more when I really want to.
Yeah, that's true. That's you fighting for yourself, you holding those boundaries, and just realizing like right now is not the moment for me to take care of this. And also with saying no, you know, like we've been talking about that guilt, don't shame yourself for not knowing what you didn't know, right? That sometimes when we say yes, it's because we're afraid that we're going to lose this person, or if I don't do this for them, they're going to resent me, blah, 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 all this stuff. But it's also about realizing that we didn't know any better at the time when we were saying yes to them. And we didn't really know that that was a boundary we needed, right? I know for me, like looking in hindsight from a lot of relationships that I've had, I didn't realize how many times I should have just said no, and it still would have been okay in the relationship. But instead, I was trying so desperately to just hold on and just be there and do all this and that, when in reality, I was losing myself in not fighting for that boundary. And I also had to deal with that shame of like, well, Jen, see, you should have done this, you should have done that, you should have done better, blah, blah, blah. But I'm slowly learning to unwind that type of mentality and just tell myself it's okay. Like, I didn't know at the time. Now that I know better, I'm going to do better, but it's all right. Back then, I was a completely different person.
Yeah, and I feel like all of us have to go through that naive stage. That's where those lessons come from. How would you learn the importance of that no if we didn't say yes and get, you know, taken advantage of a couple of times, you know? So I don't know. Like, I think I agree with you on that. And also, too, when you're taking breaks, you know, from people, let your break be a break, you know? You don't owe nobody no explanation if you really need a break. Sometimes it's like you just got to get yourself in order. Like, there's days where I need to be completely silent. Like, I'm an extrovert. I talk a lot. I'm always like, you know, I love conversation and everything. But I have days where I don't even talk. And like, it doesn't seem like me. But I've been around people where they thought they did something wrong, or, you know, or whatever. Or, you know what I mean? Or they couldn't understand that I was really just taking time for me just to get my mind in order. So it's like, if you are taking that break, or you need to get away, you need to do something, allow yourself to do that. Or a break from certain people. Yeah. Sometimes we need that. Like, it's stuff be draining, you know? But allow yourself to do that unapologetically.
Absolutely. I like that. Unapologetically. That's when you know a break is really a break.
Get that on hashtag.
Right. Get that on a t-shirt. But it's about knowing that, yes, I need this for myself, so that I can be better too in the long run. Like, when you're in a relationship with somebody, you want to be your best, right? And sometimes it's about detaching from that situation for a bit, so that you can be a better person. I'm not saying break up with this person, divorce them, whatever. That's definitely not what I'm condoning. But I'm just saying it's okay to take that break where it's like, you know what, I need to be selfish for a little bit, and let me take care of me real quick. And these are hard decisions. And the thing is that with the difficult decisions is that they save us today from the heartbreaks of tomorrow. And I think a lot of us are so in the moment, and I say a lot of us because I'm in this too. I've been so guilty of this, where I think this person's going to leave me, or I think they're going to be unhappy with me. I'm so scared of disappointing them, and et cetera, that I just don't realize I'm breaking my own heart in the process. I'm losing myself in the process too. And then also knowing dang well that for that specific situation, it wasn't going anywhere. So here I am just trying to do my best, trying to show them I'm a good person and doing all this and etc. When in reality, like, we were just not going to hold up in the long run. So I should have just learned to let it go when I had the chance to. But like, you know, not seeing it. But then now in certain situations where I'm like, no, I see a red flag here or whatever, I just decide to hop out from the very beginning, because I'm like, I'm avoiding that heartbreak.
Yeah, like, I feel like those hard decisions are those growth spurts that we need. You know, how you gonna get to the healing without that pain first? Now, I'm gonna be real, it's more pain staying there. That person too will allow you to sit there, run circles with yourself, going crazy, and not even try to help you. So you better off kind of like doing that when it's necessary, when it's time. Because I learned that, like, what's the point, you know? And it's like, especially when the situation is no longer serving you. You know, it's like, what are you getting in the long run? How is this enhancing you when the person, they don't even care, ain't even ready, taking you for granted or isolating themselves? It's so, you know what I mean? So it's really about like preserving your energy in an aspect. Because some people, I learned this too, like when you're a person, you have healing words, you're motivating, you have a positive spirit, people will use you as that energy source. You know, that's why they don't fully let go of you, because it's still something that they need or want from you. So of course they're gonna sit there, let you be around, be involved in their life, and then take from your well whenever they can, but then you can't get nothing from their well. And then when you realize that your worth, that's where I feel like that's when it comes, and you end up making that hard decision for yourself. And I think it's only a hard decision because if you're a loving person, of course, like you want to love, you want the best for the person. And I think that's where that pain comes from. But once you really let go and then you pour that love back into yourself, you realize you deserve more and you're worth more.
Absolutely. I really hope y'all were listening to that, because it is true though. We can't, like, how can I say this? So in being the healer, right, we think that, oh, I have to do this, I have to be healing them all the time, or I have so much love to give, I want to be there for this person, show them their potential, etc. I've done this, right? And I, like my last person that I dealt with, I did this also, and I realized like it was because I didn't want to look a certain way if I walked away from him, right? Because if I knew the situation, or when I knew the situation was over, I still wanted him to have a certain image of me where, like, I was the healer, the good person, and blah, blah, blah. But just because I needed to walk away from the situation doesn't make me any less of a healer. It doesn't make me any less of a good person. It just means that we no longer are compatible on this journey that we had originally planned, and that's okay. But I think a lot of us get stuck in these situations because we don't want to look a certain way, right? We don't want to let go of them, or we don't want to block them, you know, we don't want to delete them, whatever. I've done this, like I dealt with this for such a long time where it's like, well, you know, social media is not that big of a deal if we still keep each other and stuff like that. But honestly, I had to do it for me in the long run, my mental health, my boundaries, my sanity, and who cares what I look like in that person's story. If he's going to talk smack about me, he's going to do it regardless of what he says, right? So if I block him or keep him on social media, at least if I block him, I don't have to see that anymore. So that was just my thing, where it's like, it doesn't matter what you look like, quote unquote, in walking away from this person. If they're going to talk about you, they're going to talk about you.
Yeah, because things could look a certain way, but really, what is it? So with you walking away, that's you picking that self-love and knowing your worth, you know? And it's like, to the other person, it's always going to be them trying to make us, what do we call it, the villain in their story, whatever, them trying to paint some picture to feel better about how they treated us for why you walked away in the first place, you know? So I think that's important too, because I'm big on that. You know, I'll be like, oh, I mean, there's times I've like been into gym, like, oh, what if I do this, I seem like this, and it's like, well, what is my spirit telling me to do right now? What is really needed right now? Like, and then that person had time, a chance to do right by me, whatever, or, you know, make it work or show that compassion. Why do I have to be the only one always showing compassion or trying to glue and stuff? You know, after a while, you want to be fought for as well. You know, it's like, in the day, own what you can bring to the table, you know, and let them bring what they need to bring to the table. If they ain't bringing to the table, that's cool. You don't have to, it doesn't make sense. It ends up not even mattering what you look like when that ends up happening, you know. And everything, you don't always have to explain yourself. I used to really be big on that too, thinking I had to conceptualize everything, make everything rational. But this is why, you know, break it all down, send the paragraph text. So, you know, I done all that with people, family, with anybody, like having to justify my actions. But when you learn you don't owe nobody nothing, there's so much peace that comes with that.
Very true. Like we were saying earlier, right? No is a full sentence, and sometimes that's the only explanation you need to give. So with that, we're saying the same thing. Like, you don't need to give a full-on explanation of why I'm cutting you off or why I'm deciding to leave you because this and that, name a whole damn grocery list for them and stuff. Like, I'm not gonna do that anymore, because I've been the person to where I stay stuck in the same position for about half an hour trying to write a whole paragraph text and going back and forth. And first of all, paragraph texts, they just get misconstrued. They don't get communicated the way that you want them to.
They don't even read the whole thing. They already saying something back.
Exactly.
They're typing while the message you sent got sent. They don't even see it.
That's the worst, when you see the bubbles and it's like, oh shit, I'm not done writing yet.
Yeah, I'm done. No.
But it's true though. Like, we need to just normalize letting a person go, let them be for what they are. If they want that explanation, cool, you want to give it to them, that's fine, but you don't have to give it to them. Just like if a person starts treating you a certain way, they didn't explain to you why they started acting that way. So why should you have to explain something back like that? And I'm not saying, be petty and all that stuff, because at the end of the day, yeah, like we can be petty, right? We can go back and forth as to why this, why that, blah, blah, well, you did this wrong and all that stuff. But at the end of the day, is it even worth it? Like, I just don't, it seems like too much energy just being put into a situation that's already not going anywhere. So if you feel like you've done enough explaining throughout the time and now it's just time for you to remove yourself, then do it. Don't give that explanation.
Yeah, don't waste any more time trying to save that dead situation. Like she said, forcing is also a waste of energy. Like when you try to force it 10 times out of 10, that's not going to work out either. So you might as well just let it be, because what's the word? Y'all got to be able to meet each other halfway. This is any relationship, family, friends, whatever. And it's like, if you having to do everything, break your neck, that's all your energy going. And then people be getting entertained by that, watching you do all this stuff. Oh, look, I got them doing this. Da, da, da. Like, they don't even care, So it's really about taking your power back and, pulling it back and having your control all over again.
I love that. Reminding ourselves what powers we do have in these situations, right? And that's the thing. Like, when you're forcing something, you're just putting so much energy, like Vernice was saying, and rather just continuing putting it into the wrong dead situation, and you're just draining yourself. And we emphasize so much that we want to grow, personal development, this and that, but you can't grow when you're just drained all the time and you're just so concerned about somebody else's happiness or trying to put more love into them and all that. So we need to just stop trying to worry about making somebody else grow, because we can't help them grow. This is the time for us to start doing that growth.
Yeah, in the day, you matter too. So it's like, if you're putting so much energy into them, all this time passed, they probably didn't even learn what you were trying to teach them. And that's time you could have been putting into yourself, things you could have been pouring into your, at the end of the day, pick yourself first and, ask yourself, is it even worth it? I think we did an episode called, Is It Worth It? And that question still applies. I feel like if I ask myself, oh my gosh, I had to ask myself that the other day. And when you ask yourself that and you really get to the root of it, I feel like it will get answered, and you'll know how to move and act accordingly.
Very true. I mean, I think that's still one of the most relevant questions that we have. Sorry, it sounds like I was crying. I'm trying to get my voice back, but yeah, that's one of the most relevant questions that we could ever ask ourselves, because when you start analyzing things in this way, you also realize how much energy you're putting into things that don't need that energy anymore. And you realize, like, some people are only gonna take things from you until you allow them to, right? And some people are only gonna continue to take you for granted until you finally remove yourself from that situation. And that's when you really realize, like, dang, what was I doing here? Like, going back to that question, was it worth it, right? After all, because at the end of the day, did they even notice that I left? Did they even notice that I was doing all this for them? Because I definitely had a person who I was trying to do everything for him. I was trying to be there for him, making sure that he was good. And then when I finally removed myself, I realized he didn't even care. Like, he didn't even realize that I was gone. He just moved on to the next person, and whatever he was doing, I hope it's working. But honestly, like, for me, it just was like a wake-up call, because I realized, like, wow, I didn't mean as much to this person as I thought I did. So why was I wasting so much time trying to be with them?
Wow, that's deep. And it's like, I don't know, like people will take us for granted as long as, like, we're available to them, and they know that. And I feel like that's a person knowing, like, they have a certain power over us. And it's like, when it gets like that, that's when it gets messy, you know what I mean? And then they too, only you can decide when it's time to do that. So we say that because you don't want to pull your energy from somebody when it's too early and you're not ready to do it. Because I've been in a situation where I've done that and I honestly wasn't ready to do it. I just did it kind of out of impulse, and I caught myself, like, unblocking the person, putting myself back in, bringing my energy back to that person and everything. And then it made it a more just messed up situation. It caused more confusion, it caused more chaos and drama, caused more pain on me. And then it was just a mess. And what I want to say is, like, make sure you're ready before you do. We're not saying act impulsively. This has to be something that you're really thinking about, and you know that that whoever it is detrimental to your mental health. That's what we're talking about here.
Definitely. We're not even saying, like, use this episode as your sign, like, oh, I'm gonna cut this motherfucker off, or anything like that. Like, we don't want to be the cause of any of this. But if you feel like this episode is helping you or answering some of those questions for you, and you've already been contemplating it, then maybe just continue contemplating, and maybe it's time for you to start analyzing the entire thing. Because you have to be the one who has already been doing the work and just thinking about, like, is this serving me? Is it worth it? Asking yourself all these hard questions. And if there's something in you saying this isn't gonna be good for me in the long run, then maybe it's time. Like, I know that's the hardest thing to realize, especially when you have feelings for somebody, right? Let's be real. We're not ready to let go of somebody when all those feelings are still there. But the thing is, again, long term, thinking about this, what do you want out of the situation? Is it actually serving you? Are you benefiting from all of this? And if any of the answers to those questions are no, then girl or guy, maybe it's time to go.
Yeah, and I like what you said about the long run. I feel like we don't think about that. You know, when we're in the moment, we're just like, oh, la la la. But then when you do think of that long term, you're like, is this worth even all this investment that I'm putting into with this time, this energy? How am I going to be in the long term now, since I'm allowing this in my space for this long? You know, I think that's another question to ask ourselves. And honestly, all this relates to self-love, because you're preserving your energy. You're allowing yourself to grow. You're allowing yourself to build yourself up. You're not letting anybody take you for granted, or just take from you all day. You know, you're setting your boundaries. You're putting your foot down, and you're building yourself up.
I love that. It's the biggest battle you can have, right? The one for you. And that's the thing. Like, y'all may be, well, how do I know when it's time to let go? We don't have all the answers for y'all. All I can say is that when you're more miserable than you are happy in a situation, any kind of situation, maybe it's time to start analyzing and reflecting on, is this actually still serving me? And then also, when you realize, like, have you been checked out? Like, how long have you been mentally checked out? And if it's been for quite a while, you're not feeling this, you're not feeling that person, do yourself and that person and that situation a favor and just let it go, because it's not cool being on the other side of the relationship trying to make things work, thinking that you're still happy with this person, when in reality the other person's fully checked out and has been for a very long time. So if you're on that note of mentally checked out, then, check yourself on that.
Yeah, Jen always says a person leaves mentally before they leave physically. And that stuck to me because it's true. And this could even go with, like, a career choice, anything. Like, what's the word? Life's too short for us to be, like, settling for things that isn't bringing us peace, or things that we know we don't really want to be doing. Like, if we're not chasing our passion or anything like that, like, really is a reason that something's making you unhappy and you're feeling unsatisfied, whether it is with a person, career-wise, financially, mentally. Really take the time to figure out what that is, because there's a reason that you are mentally checked out.
Tell it. Yes. And that's the thing, like, y'all, I hope y'all know that this whole episode isn't just about relationships. It's like Renisa was saying, any career choices, any goals you may have that maybe are no longer serving you, or just rearranging different aspects of your life. But also, like, what is still holding you there, right? Is it sustainable for the long run? So for the first one, what is it holding you there? Really ask yourself this question, because sometimes, so me speaking on relationships specifically, sometimes it's the history we have with somebody, that comfort we have with somebody, the connection we have them, which is all great and dandy, right? Sometimes we've been with somebody for so long that it's like, I don't know how to be with anybody else, or I don't want to be with anybody else. I was like that for a while, where it's like, well, I've been with this person, they know me, I know them, and etc. But I wasn't happy. And then I knew in the long run, we were just going to end up resenting each other. It wasn't going to end up working out. So I realized it's time for me to go, and it's better for me to do the heartbreak rather than wait until he does it, because by that time I knew it was going to be even worse, because I knew he wasn't going to do it anytime soon. So it's just a hard question that I had to ask myself, because for me, what was holding me were the feelings I had for this person. I wanted to be with this person, I wanted to make it work and everything, but at the end of the day, we just weren't compatible with each other. So I realized, rather than going 10 years down the road, and making all these other mistakes, it's probably hating each other in the long run, I'd rather stop it now and just let ourselves find happiness apart from each other.
Well said. And I want to say too, going off what you said about, like, how long you knew a person and the comfortability, how much they know you. I mentioned this on the live episode. Basically, somebody was asking me for advice, saying, about a situation, and they were saying that, the reason why they're staying with the person is because the person knows them so well. And I was like, the devil know you well too, but does that mean, is that something that you're going to want to entertain, in that aspect? So it's like, in a day, like, what does that mean? In the day, are we normalizing? That's a way to normalize toxic behavior, and it's a way to stunt our growth when we're just using those excuses. Because what's wrong with getting to know somebody else or getting to know yourself? You know, that's a beautiful relationship. It needs to be nourished and cherished as well.
Absolutely. Y'all both have to give, right? And also, again, going back to what we were saying earlier, make sure you're fully ready to let this person go. Make sure that, like, okay, so when we say this, we're not saying you're not going to hurt. It doesn't mean you're not probably not going to rethink the decision. But the thing is, when you're ready to let them go, where it's like, it's okay if they're not in my life anymore. It's okay if something different happens after this. And I think when you come to that realization is when you're actually ready to let them go, where it's like, you know what, I'm okay if they don't come back anymore. I'm okay if we just don't speak again. It doesn't mean that I'm not going to be sad or I'm not going to cry over it, but it just means I'm all right with letting this stuff go. It's run its course and I'm ready for something different.
Yeah, and then they too, be firm in your decision. So that means if that's your decision, be for standing there and be proud of that and have confidence in it. You know, sometimes we have to get out of a situation and fully see the whole picture. Because why is it that people could give us good advice who are standing on the outside because they see things that we don't? And something else that helps me, always picture one of your close friends or loved ones going through what you're going through. Would you, like, I always think like, okay, if Jen was going through the same situation, what would I tell her? You know, because when we're in it, we're like, we make all these excuses. But if it's someone you love, of course you're gonna be right there trying to get them the best advice. And it's always the best, because I'm like, if Jen went through half of that shit, anything that put me through, I would have been like, oh no, best friend, I don't know about that. So it's like we have to take ourselves out of it for a little bit.
Yeah, I mean, if I saw you going through what I've been through, I'd be like, I'm gonna kill this. Just
right, we'd be more bad than the person. Yeah.
But for real, I think that's one of the most beautiful ways. Like, treat yourself like you would your best friend, right? And then also, this one might sound cheesy or like cliche or whatever to y'all, but if you've ever done this, you know what we're talking about. Make a pros and cons list. When I first heard this, I thought it was the cheesiest thing in the world. I was like, this is not gonna help me. But like seeing things written down.
Something about it.
Yeah, I'm a very visual person, so I have to see like what, and then especially I love lists. I love like pros, advantages, disadvantages, all that. So seeing like the pros and cons and seeing that the cons were actually worse, not even necessarily longer, it's just that they were worse. That scared me, and that's actually what made me realize it's time for me to go. I can't do this anymore. And I've done this even for like switching jobs, where I'm like, I see that a job is affecting my mental health and my sanity. I'm just like, I gotta go. Like, it's no longer serving me. It's run its course. I've grown the most that I can in this situation. I gotta go. It's the same exact thing with relationships. So really try it out. Especially if you're on the brinks of, I don't know what to do, and should I not, a pros and cons list, it will get you so far.
Yeah, and add on that, with that pros and cons list, sometimes the pros list is things that you thought the person was. Like, I'm gonna be real, because it's really the potential or what you thought or what you hoped they were, and then the cons really be that, and I think that's the scary part about writing it out too, because I think if I really was sitting and writing a pro and con list too, mine would probably sound like that sometimes, so I don't know, it's something about, you said seeing it written down and stuff, it just hits different, because when it's all in your brain, you don't see the quantity of it adding up. It's just a thought that comes and passes, but when it's written, it's like, dang, all that and all that. So you can really analyze what is it, and are the pros worth, like, are they quality pros at that? There's pros, but is that sustainable things for the long term?
Exactly. Yeah, we gotta stop thinking instant gratification. Just start thinking like long term. How is this gonna serve me? Is this a real connection that I want to keep?
Especially in our age bracket.
Oh my gosh. Yeah.
I mean, we're not old, but I'm just saying, and like I feel like when you're in your late 20s, like I said, time happens. You do have lessons and stuff, but your decisions do affect you more as you get older. The older you get, the more important your decisions are. So it's like we're at that time where it's like, who are we giving our energy to? Who are we giving our space to?
And I've heard this quote that goes, whether I stay or whether I go, I still get hurt. And honestly, it feels like that. But there's a big difference too, because I used to be that person too, where I was like, well, you know, if I leave him, I'm gonna be super sad, but if I stay, I'm also gonna keep hurting. It's kind of like the song "Foolish" by Ashanti, right?
Oh my goodness.
She's like
or
going
702.
Yeah, yes, where
Get
they're
it together.
kind of going back and forth. I actually really like both of those
Yes,
songs.
that was a perfect example.
But like, okay, so if you leave somebody, yes, it'll hurt for a while, but you'll be better later on. Because if you're thinking of letting this person go, there's obviously something not helping you. There's obviously something not making you happy. But if you decide to stay with this person, all those problems that you're having now are just going to get 10 times worse. They're going to amplify throughout time. And the longer you stay with them doesn't guarantee you that you're actually going to get better, right? Especially if things have been bad for a really long time. Like, I'm not saying after the first argument, run off and fuck them or whatever. No, it's nothing like that. It's about seeing the patterns or realizing, like, you know what, we try to move on from this, but we actually just keep coming back, and then we just keep adding more to this argument. Because I've been in those where it's like you're a damn record player just having the same argument over and over again, and it's exhausting. And after a while you realize this person's not going to change. They're not going to see your view, or they're not going to let go of whatever pain you caused them. So we have to learn to live with that too, that sometimes that person is at a different growth point in their lives where y'all just aren't on the same journey, and maybe it's time for y'all to just let each other go. And yes, you'll be hurting, you'll be sad, but you'll heal, versus if you stay with them and you're just going to continue hurting and losing parts of yourself every single time.
Yeah, like I'd rather have the heal timer start quicker than prolonging it or making it worse to where it's more to heal from, you know. And I think that's the way to look at it, you know. That's like the big picture. And like, you know, with the instant gratification, just like knock that out, you know. I don't know, like in a day, shoot, get your mindset like an Aquarius. What's our episode called? Think like an Aquarius. You know, detach when it's time to. That's what I'm saying. When it's time. When it's saying go and detach from everybody. But protect yourself, protect your energy, protect your heart, and protect your peace.
That's all you have, honestly. So that's what you got to start doing. And letting go is hard, right? But you can always heal later. Whereas if you're holding on, you're losing yourself in the long run, and that's actually worse. So that's what we just want to get to in the whole think like an Aquarius thing that we were getting in this episode, where, like Bernice was saying, detach when it's time to. Like, you'll know. And if you've been thinking about it for a while and you want to use this episode as inspiration or kind of a sign for it, that's cool. That's what we're here for also, right? If we can help heal relationships, heal people, then that's our thing. But also do it when it's your time.
Yeah, really reevaluate and self-reflect. We thank y'all for checking out our 58th episode. You can check us out on Instagram at SpeakUpJV, on Twitter at SpeakUpJV. Our other platforms, we're also, if you want to just hear this we're on Spotify, Apple, apparently iHeartRadio. You can check us out on Podbean at speakupjv.podbean.com. We are also on the Good News Radio every Thursday at 7 p.m. Pacific Standard Time. Download the Good News Radio app to tune in. It's even located in our bio as well on our Instagram page. But we will tap back with y'all very soon.
Love y'all.